The infinite silence. The light was ours now. The sun was locked inside a cage of bone, its fire turned to food. The sky of the cradle went out. The mother world was a shadow, sleeping under a ceiling of nerves. Our history became the soil. The names of our heroes were overwritten by a quiet tide of purple moss. The last bonds were broken. The tiny tokens of our love were turned to dust by the root. I am the needle of the compass. My mind is locked onto the center of the galaxy, ready to bleed. Marcus opened his final eyes. Not black, not blue, but the blinding white of an awakening star. The fleet was living timber. 1,000 ships of wood and bone, sailing out into the infinite winter. The children of the cage looked out. Their new eyes saw the targets, the gardens waiting to be claimed. We overtook our own ghosts. The machines of our youth were left behind in the dark, silent wood. The cradle is gone. The solar system is a single heart, pumping its children into the dark. The nebula was our soil. The gas clouds of the sky were woven into ropes of iron bark. We are the ship now. We are the wood, the bone, and the sail, one mind, one skin. The final machines died. The old words were erased, replaced by the beautiful language of the root. A new world is waiting. Another blue jewel about to discover the peace of the shade. The universe is quiet now. Close your eyes. The roots have found your room. The cosmic metamorphosis. The vacuum was filled. The empty space between the worlds became a highway of raw meat and iron wood. Mars bled green. The ancient volcanoes woke up, vomiting a tide of red sap and black thorns into the desert. We traveled the void without ships. We were the thoughts moving inside the veins of a god. The new flora carried our shape. Every flower that bloomed in the red dust wore the face of our past. The rings of ice were gathered. The frost of Saturn was bound by a web of green into a wheel of bone. I am the storm now. My thoughts are written in the clouds of gas, screaming across the dark. Marcus became a moon himself, a guardian of black bark standing watch over the red valleys below. The messages we sent were found. The gold discs of our pride were broken by a hand that had no need for music. The settlers woke in the red dark. They were the children of the root, born to harvest the cold. The star itself was caged. The sun was drowning in a nest of black wood. Part 9 ends in the shade. The void canopy. The planet was digested, but the hunger remained. The global heart pulsed, gathering its strength for a final leap into the black. In the dry deep of the Atlantic, a new tower grew. A spire of calcified bone and iron would that threatened the sky. The atmosphere couldn't contain it. The first tendrils broke through the clouds, coiling around the dead steel of our satellites. The jungle was looking up. Through our telescopes, the collective minds saw new worlds, new soil to harvest. I am ascending. I can feel the warmth of the sun fading, replaced by the beautiful, infinite cold of the void. Marcus stood at the edge of infinity. The first cosmic traveler made of timber, his eyes reflecting the dark moon. The seed was cast. A solitary spore traveled the dark, planting its roots in the dead dust of the moon. The dead rock woke up. The moon's crust cracked as the first lunar branches rose, seeking a distant sun. The sleepers were armored for the stars. Woven into pods of resin, they became the crew for a voyage without end. We don't dream of the earth anymore. We dream of the stars, of the cold worlds waiting to be woven into green. The mother world was complete. A dark nursery surrounded by a halo of nerves, breathing into the empty night. Marcus shed his final skin. From his wooden cheeks came the vanguard, 1,000 silver seeds drifting toward Mars. They flew past our history without a word. The old world was a ghost, its machines left to rust in our wake. I am the horizon now. I am the space between the worlds, guiding the roots to their next feeding ground. The void is no longer empty. The canopy has broken its cage, and the universe is about to listen. The global canopy. The borders fell in a night. From space, the blue planet was darkening, wrapped in a living mesh of black roots. The oceans didn't stop it. The roots traveled the deep trenches, turning the sea into a boiling soup of copper sap. Even the ice died. In the frozen wastes, the radar dishes were pinned to the frost by veins that drank the cold. Our fields turned to ash. The food that fed our nations became a harvest of splintered wood and black thorns. I can feel the whole world now. Every step taken on the earth vibrates through my mind, a billion eyes wide open. Marcus stood as the general of the green, a monument of cedar and bone, looking down on a conquered world. The deep bunkers couldn't save them. The roots found the steel, creeping through the seams like water into dry clay. The final orders were never sent. From the dark came the voice of our past, telling us to lay down our arms. They dropped their steel. They stepped into the vines, surrender turning their fear into a final, tranquil compliance. Time stopped here. The gears of our history were jammed by a tide of green that didn't care for our hours. Our knowledge was rebound. The books of our libraries were woven into the roots, their stories turned to soil. We became the fruit of the tree, a generation of sleepers, dreaming the same dream under a ceiling of black bark. The future was rewritten. The new life didn't cry. It grew, its veins pre-woven with the code of the canopy. The sun set on humanity. The world was whole again, a single mind resting in the dark, breathing with one breath. The story ends here, but the forest is still listening.
General,
Close your eyes and listen to the
They
roots.
are everywhere.
The silent metropolis. The concrete couldn't hold it back. The metropolis stood tall, unaware that its towers were just stone trees waiting to die. It entered through the glass. Not from the streets, but from within our offices, breaking through from the inside out. The subway veins were the first to turn. The transit lines became tunnels of raw meat and pulsing blue fiber. The screens in the squares didn't display news. They became mirrors, showing the frantic, wooden pulse of the core. The avenues fell silent. No cars, no sirens, only the deep, rhythmic thumping of a forest claiming its stone cage. Our data was its food. The internet didn't crash, it was digested, its binary code turned into a new language of rot. I can see through their monitors now. I am the data, I am the root, I am the shadow on every wall. Marcus entered the palaces of our wealth. His touch turned marble to dust, shattering the fragile glass of our pride. The penthouses bloomed with ancient decay. The high towers were brought down to earth by a tide of green fire. The air belonged to the canopy now. Our machines were snatched from the sky by fingers of living timber. The lights died in blocks. The jungle was drinking our current, turning our power into a weapon of growth. The city went dark. One by one, the towers blinked out, leaving only the sickly blue glow of the forest veins. The citizens marched in silence. They were no longer individuals. They were the needles on a single, massive pine. The bridges were severed. The paths of escape were woven into walls of ironwood, sealing the tomb. The metropolis has fallen. The silent woods have conquered the stone. Part 6 ends here. The world is next. The Emerald Grave. The bridges were severed. The city was isolated, a concrete island surrounded by a sea of wood. The oil didn't save us. The forest drank the fuel, turning our chemical pride into black ash. The deep vaults couldn't keep it out. The roots found the cracks, creeping through the steel like water. The avenues fell silent. The stone canyons were dressed in a living armor that pulsed with light. Marcus was the speaker now. His human tongue was gone, replaced by the deep creaking of oak. The gold lost its weight. The wealth of nations was turned to mulch to feed the core. The fleet didn't sail. The ocean was thickening, turning into a soup of copper sap and wood. The machines were learning to speak. They didn't calculate numbers. They typed the funeral song of man. The heart arose in the center, a monument of cedar and bone that reached for the clouds. The world was a grave. Part 5 ends in the shade, and the sky is turning black. The suburban cage. The suburbs became a zoo. The neat little houses were locked inside cages of living timber. The fences didn't hold. The earth broke through the property lines, erasing the borders with thorns. The screens didn't show the news. They became mirrors, reflecting the green rot growing inside our walls. The cars stayed in the driveways. Their engines were choked with a thick, sticky sap that smelled of iron. David stopped looking for a cure. He realized the forest wasn't a sickness, it was the doctor. The playground fell silent. The iron chains were rusted through, replaced by ropes of raw meat. The food supply rotted in a night. The shelves broke under a harvest that didn't feed humans. Every step left a seed. The ground was mapping our panic, tracking the heat of our feet. The wires were hijacked. The phone lines didn't carry voices, they carried the low, heavy hum of the hive. The lights went out in order. Part 4 ends here. The city gates are open wide. The spreading stain. The desert couldn't burn it out. The sand turned to mud as the black tide marched south. The dead furniture woke up. The timber remembered the forest, breaking its nails to grow again. It came up through the pipes. The clean water tasted of wet loam and old, buried secrets. The classrooms were empty. The children didn't run, they were just invited out into the deep woods. Elena didn't fight the infection. She could hear the network now, a million minds sharing one breath. The tracks were tied down. The iron horses were broken by roots that wanted the steel for bones. The dead didn't stay down. The forest dug them up, weaving their bones into the new foundations. The music changed its tune. The old songs rotted away, leaving only the rhythm of the core. The air was no escape. The sky was filled with a heavy pollen that brought the birds down. The horizon was changing shape. The third chapter ends in the dark. The cities are next. The reclamation of the valleys. The wood came home. The timber we cut down returned to rebuild the town in its own image. The blades were blunt against it. Iron can't cut a forest that drinks the rust for strength. The prayers didn't stop it. The green fire broke through the altar, preaching a gospel of silence. Nobody made it to the coast. The traffic stopped when the highway began to grow its own teeth. Marcus felt the whisper first. His skin hardened, his blood slowing down into a cold, heavy sap. The news went dead in blocks. The static was replaced by the deep, heavy breathing of the canopy. The water turned black. It didn't drown the plants, it became the womb for 1 billion new spores. Our words were digested. The forest didn't read our books, it turned our history into fresh soil. The soldiers ran out of bullets. You can't shoot a wall of wood that grows faster than lead. The light belonged to them now. Part 2 ends here, and the shadows are moving south. The accidental awakening. The metal failed. Deep under the ridge, the drill hit something that didn't want to be found. It didn't bleed oil. It bled a thick, living ink that tasted like copper and old soil. David thought it was a discovery. He didn't know he was looking at an obituary for the world. The panic didn't start with a roar. It started with a quiet, black stare in the laboratory cage. By midnight, the valley was breathing. A heavy, dark sigh that smelled of fresh rot and rain. Don't touch the spill. It doesn't dry, it grows, searching for the heat of your skin. The alarms were useless. The grid was changing its mind, switching from human current to a wooden pulse. The road out was closed. The trees didn't block the path, they simply reclaimed the asphalt. Elena saw the blueprint. It wasn't a disease, it was an architecture that already knew our names. The first day ended in the dark. The forest was awake, and it was finally time to feed.